Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be installing this gray water tank. It's a 5-gallon tank. We're going to build a custom enclosure for it, and we'll have an electronic valve here, which we can just flip a switch and drain it out. So this is what we have under the van right now. This is not glued in yet up top. I just have it clamped in so it won't fall out. I'll be able to cut it down the sides that way. I'm gonna mount the tank right over here, and I'll just have a 45 coming this way, and then another 45 going into the tank. And then we'll have the electronic valve to drain it. We'll have an air vent up top, and then there's another opening on the tank that we'll just plug. So I'll have a link for this tank. This is the tank I'm going to use. This is only going to be for the kitchen sink. So I'm just using a 5-gallon tank, and then I'll probably do another one under the shower, same size. Got some elbows here. Here's the valve. Some PEX equipment here. Grinder. Got the miter box set up with the metal cutting blade. I've got some strapping here. This will hold the tank up, and then I'm going to make like a mounting bracket out of this. I've got some stainless steel nuts and bolts here, a couple L brackets for the strapping, one plug, a few PEX adapters, 1/2 inch, 1.5 inch drain pipe connection, a few elbows, some Teflon tape, some marine sealant. That's about it. Okay, so I've got this kind of loosely in place where it needs to be, and I find it easier to leave a little extra until you get everything where it needs to be and you're sure everything lines up, and then I can mark this now and cut this off, but everything fits in here like so. You can see here I had to notch away for that pipe there, but everything fits really tight. So now I'm just going to mark over here and cut this excess off. So here I am under the van now, and I have a clamp just reversed just to hold it in place so I could take some measurements. I'm going to take this metal strip here, and I'm going to have one going from here, connecting here and here, going to the other side, and another one over here connecting to the bottom, going to another beam on the other side. So I have to take a measurement to cut this metal strip down. Now I need to drill a hole through each of these brackets big enough for the bolt to fit through. I made a mark where I need to bend this side. So now I'm just adding the 1/2 inch PEX connectors here, and I'm using plenty of Teflon tape. The bottom left is going to be for the electronic drain valve, and the top left is going to be for the air vent. The top right, I have a plug in there. I understand it's not 100% proper to connect a brass fitting to a plastic tank. You should technically use a plastic fitting, but then you have to use plastic tubing, which I don't like to do. I prefer to use the PEX, and I've never had this leak, so I think it's fine. Alright, let's take a look at this before I put it under the van, and we won't be able to see it too well under there. Got the brackets mounted on here. Everything's with stainless steel bolts, washers, and then there's a washer, lock nut, and nut on each one of these bolts. Tank will sit on it like this. It'll be right up against the floor of the van there, screwed up tight onto the frame of the van on each side, so it'll be pressed up tight. This is going to be the air vent, and then I'll attach the electronic valve to this.
So now this is under the van, and I've got it held up with the clamp here. So now I just need to screw these into the frame, and once I get the first two in, it'll be a little easier. It'll be held up there, and then I can clamp it up on the other side, push the other side up tight, and then screw that side in. What I like to do before I put in the thick galvanized screws that I'm going to use here that won't rust. Instead of wasting a drill bit, I'll just use one of these self-drilling screws to make a pilot hole. And then after I get that hole, I'll go in with the thicker galvanized screw. So these are the screws I use to hold the tank up. They're galvanized, they won't rust. And I got a really thick head on them, so I gotta use this other bit. Okay, that other side's screwed in, so now I'm over here and I've got it clamped up against the base of the van here. And then I'm just gonna push these up and screw these in the same way. So with the clamping and pushing this up, there's gonna be like a good amount of tension on it, so it just can't wiggle in any direction. It's gonna be really tight. Jesus. Alright, that is fully installed. That is definitely not moving at all. Super sturdy. These straps are made out of zinc. They're not steel, so they'll be a little more rust resistant. Same with this. And all the bolts are stainless steel. But this is very solid. And I've had some people comment on the last time I did this. They're like, what about ground clearance? Guys, look at the rear axle. That's about a foot lower than this, so I'm not losing any ground clearance. Look at the muffler, I mean the exhaust. That's way lower than this. Everything is lower than this. Ground clearance is not an issue at all. Pretty much level with the frame, actually. And that rear axle is just so low to the ground, so you really don't have to worry about ground clearance with this. So the only thing left now is I can make a cut on this, and then another 45 going in here, and then put in the actual valve right there. That'll do last. First I'm gonna cut this. Okay, now I can finally make this last connection here. Definitely want to put something down here while you're working on this. It's a little bit messy. Alright, now I can go under a van and make the other connections. Just like that, we are done. And then I'll fill that drain hole with some foam insulation, and then I'll put some of the marine sealant over that like I did in the other videos. So you have to be really careful when you buy this valve because there's like 5 different types. There's a 3-wire one, a 5-wire one, a 2-wire one like this one, and then within the 2-wire ones there's also an auto return valve and a reverse polarity valve like this one. And for the setup I'm going to do, you need to have the reverse polarity valve or it will not work with the switch. The reason you want the reverse polarity valve is because when it's closed, it uses no power. It uses a little bit of power to open the valve, and then it stops using power again. And then a little bit of power to close the valve, and then it stops using power. If you get the 2-wire auto return valve, it can be used with a normal switch, but it's going to need to use power the entire time you keep it closed. And if the power goes out, it'll open automatically. It's going to consume power when you're not using it. So you definitely want the reverse polarity valve. So if you use the link in my description, you'll definitely have the correct one.
Here I'm just using some pipe sealant to connect the 1/2-inch PEX adapter to each side of the valve.
This is just going to attach just like this. Get that clamp in the right spot so it'll be easy to clamp. And now from here you could add whatever you want. If you want to add a hose attachment coming to the end of the van here, or you can just leave it like this and let it drain straight down. Depends what you're draining out of this tank, I guess, and where you're draining it. Okay. Perfect. Next, what we're going to need to make this valve work is one of these double pole, double throw switches. You can see it has 6 connections here. And it looks pretty complicated, but it's really not that complicated. We're going to take the power wire that I pre-ran that goes to the fuse panel and connect the positive and negative. And then we're going to take the wire coming from the valve under the van, and we're going to take the positive and negative for it and create a pigtail. So we have 2 positives, two negatives. We're going to take 1 positive connected here, 1 negative connected there, and then crisscross the other 2. So you have the power source, positive, negative, 1 positive from the valve over here, and the other positive here, and 1 negative from the valve here, the other negative here. So that'll create a reverse polarity situation, so when you switch the switch, it either reverses the polarity or it keeps it normal. And it doesn't use any power once it's open or closed. It just uses a little bit of power to move the valve. You could also add this thing on top. You want to keep that toggle. And then just got one of these from Home Depot, and we're going to mount it on the back side of that. So this might help to illustrate what I was just talking about here, and you can kind of freeze frame on this if you want to look at it. So in several places under the van I ran these auxiliary wires just for these types of situations where I would need additional wires. So this is going back to the fuse panel. I have it marked auxiliary 3, and this is what I'm going to use to power the switch here. So now I just need to run another wire going from the switch where I'm going to mount right here down below the van, extending that wire coming off the valve. Okay, so I ran this wire along where the pipe is, and obviously I'm not going to leave it like this where it could rub up against the metal and maybe damage the wire down the line. This is all going to get a thick coat of marine sealant. It's going to lock everything in place and kind of give a nice rubber layer where this won't move. This will all be sealed up. So I haven't got to that yet, so don't worry about that. I'll take care of that. And I just put some wire connectors on these. Same with the wire coming from the valve. So I'll connect these 2 wires, and then I think I could push them up so the connection's actually up in here, because this wire can reach all the way in there. But I'll zip tie it to the pipe here so it's not moving around, and then we'll seal all this up. Alright, so this is all ran where it's going to be now. Ideally you might want to use some wire conduit to protect this, but I think the marine sealant's going to have the same effect, because I'm really going to have a thick coat of it. It's going to be basically encased in this thick rubber, so I think it'll be fine. So I'm going to mount the switch right here, and I just made a little pencil line big enough for this to fit through, and I'm just going to cut that out with the Dremel. Okay, I just got my wires coming out here. This is the power source, and this is the wire coming from the valve, so I can go ahead and shorten that to right there. And then I need to take these 2 wires here and make them into 4, so I have 2 positive and 2 negative instead of just 1 positive, 1 negative. Okay, so let's look at what we have here so far. I've got the positive and negative coming from the valve, and I've just put a pigtail on them. So this way I'll have 1 positive on this side, and the other positive will crisscross onto that side, and then 1 negative here, the other negative here, and then I'll just connect the positive and negative from the fuse box on the 2 centers here. And it doesn't really matter which side is which. Okay, so that's how it looks when it's all wired up. Looks complex, but it's really not that complex. Now I can stuff everything through here, and And then we have this that I'll just screw on here. Okay, so here's the finished switch. I put a little label for closed and open. We're going to the van. I can show you what it looks like under here. Here's your valve. And of course, you know, you can connect whatever you want to here. Another little hose connection, and you could kind of clamp it on here. For me, I just leave it like this because I'm just running water in the sink. So 99% of the time, I'll just leave it open and let it drain out. And then if I'm somewhere I can't do that, then I keep it closed, and then when I get somewhere I can drain it out, and then I do that. I've got the wire just zip tied to the pipe here, and I have some marine sealant on there. That's just one coat. I'm going to put one more coat to fully protect that. Yeah, no leaks. You just flip the switch and then it'll drain out. I've got water in the tank right now. So let me show you how the switch works. Just flip the switch. And you see, it just starts draining out. And we flip it again, close it. And it takes just a couple seconds to close. And then no more water.
Okay guys, thanks for watching. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell so you don't miss out on the next episode. There's a lot more to come. And also I have links in the description down below for all the previous episodes of this build. So check that out if you haven't seen them all yet, and I'll see you guys next time.